Hi, my name is Anthony. I'm 75 years old, and I want to share with you some experiences I've accumulated along this journey we call life. I've been a widower for 5 years, since my beloved Mary went to be with God, leaving a void that I learned to fill with sweet memories and much gratitude for the 45 years we shared together. I live alone in a small but cozy apartment on the 3rd floor of a quiet building in the neighborhood where I spent most of my life. It's a place full of stories and memories. Each corner holds a piece of what we built together. I have 2 wonderful children, Lucy and Charles, who are my pride and strength. Lucy inherited her mother's determination and practical spirit. She's a lawyer, married to Richard, and mother to my grandchildren Julie, 15, and Peter, 8. Charles followed a different path. He's an architect, married to Helen, and father to the twins, Michael and Ralph, the 12. The 4 grandchildren are the light of my days, each with their unique personality, bringing color and joy to my life. After dedicating 40 years of my life as a history teacher at the same public school, Lincoln High School, I learned a lot about how to live better in my senior years. It was a journey of discoveries, adaptations, and mainly self-knowledge. Today I want to share some of these lessons, starting with something that seems simple at first glance, but makes all the difference in our daily lives: our clothes, and how we present ourselves to the world. The wardrobe transformation. Last Tuesday, I was organizing my wardrobe, an activity that has become almost therapeutic for me since Mary passed away, when I realized how my choices have changed over the years. The ritual began early, after my breakfast. I opened the doors of the mahogany wardrobe that has been with our family for 3 decades and began to review each piece of clothing, each hanger, each drawer. At the beginning of retirement, I confess I had a huge difficulty parting with those starched dress shirts that were part of my identity as a teacher. I remember having at least 15 identical white shirts, all carefully ironed and organized, as if they were in military formation inside the wardrobe. It was as if those formal clothes were armor that protected me, keeping alive the image of the respected Professor Anthony that I had been for so many years. Mary used to tease me about this. "Anthony," she would say with that sweet smile that only she had, "you're not teaching the kings of England anymore. You can relax a bit." But I resisted. I continued wearing the same formal clothes to go to the supermarket, the bakery, even to water the plants on the balcony. It was a deeply rooted habit, perhaps even a way of clinging to the identity I had built over 4 decades. It was my daughter Lucy, always so attentive and caring, who first noticed my discomfort. On a specific Saturday afternoon, while we were having coffee on the balcony and I was adjusting for the 10th time the starched collar that stubbornly bothered me, she gently commented, "Dad, you don't need to wear these formal shirts anymore. We can find something that's both elegant and comfortable." At first I resisted the idea. Old habits are indeed hard to change. "But Lucy," I argued, "I've always dressed like this. Your first-year students used to call me Professor Bond because of the suits," I recalled with a nostalgic smile. She laughed, took my hand on the table and said something that changed my perspective. "Dad, the respect you earned wasn't in the clothes you wore, but in the amazing teacher and human being you are." The Pima cotton revolution. The discovery of Pima cotton was a real watershed moment in my wardrobe. It happened during a Sunday lunch at Lucy's house, when my son-in-law Richard, who works with fabric imports, arrived all excited with some fabric samples he had received. "Father-in-law," he said, as he handed me an incredibly soft piece of fabric, "you need to try these shirts. They're like a cloud hug." I confess I was skeptical at first. How could a simple fabric make such a difference? But Richard, with his experience in the textile industry, began to explain to me about the long fibers of Pima cotton, about how it was grown in specific conditions in Peru, about the incomparable durability and comfort. It was a real lesson in textile technology. I remember perfectly the day Lucy took me to that specialized store in the mall. It was a Thursday afternoon after my reading group. "Dad, try this one," she insisted, handing me a light blue shirt that looked absurdly simple compared to my traditional dress shirts. When I put it on, it was a revelation. It was as if my skin could finally breathe after years of confinement in stiff, starched fabrics. The investment was a bit higher than I used to make in clothes, it's true. Each shirt cost practically double my old dress shirts. But Lucy, always sensible, helped me do the math. "Dad, think that you're going to wear these shirts for a long time, and they'll maintain their quality. Besides, your comfort is priceless." She was right, as always. That same day, I took home 3 shirts, a light blue one, a beige one, and a white one. It was the beginning of a real revolution in my wardrobe. Gradually, the old starched shirts gave way to more comfortable pieces, but no less elegant. Mary would have loved this transformation. She always said I needed to relax a bit with clothes. The simplicity that comes with wisdom over time, I learned that true elegance lies in simplicity. Today, my wardrobe is much smarter and more functional. I have a basic set of chino pants in neutral colors, beige, navy blue, and gray, that match practically everything. They are quality pieces, well cut, that don't mark age or follow passing fads. For the chess club meetings, where I meet my friends every Wednesday, I like to wear a well-ironed polo shirt, and depending on the weather, a light blazer. Nothing too flashy, but always neat. As I often say to my grandchildren, you don't need to shout to be heard, nor dress extravagantly to be noticed. Caring for clothes, a legacy of love. One of the most important lessons I learned throughout life was about caring for clothes. It was something Mary always emphasized, with that special way she had of transforming everyday tasks into moments of love and dedication. "Anthony," she used to say while ironing my shirts with almost surgical care, "the way we care for our clothes says a lot about how we care for ourselves." Today, I maintain this habit as a way to honor her memory and her teachings. Every night, before going to bed, I separate the clothes for the next day and check if they're well ironed. I have a special hanger for each blazer, and my shirts are always on padded hangers to keep their shape. These are small rituals that help me maintain a connection with her, and at the same time, take care of myself. What moves me the most is when my grandchildren notice these small details. Last week, Julie, my oldest granddaughter, commented during Sunday lunch, "Grandpa, you're always so elegant. Even to stay at home, you dress up nicely." Michael, one of the twins, added, "It's true, Grandpa. You're the most stylish grandfather at school. It's not about vanity. It never was. It's about self-respect and keeping alive the values that Mary and I always tried to pass on to our children. When I go to the supermarket or the bakery, I invariably meet former students or teacher colleagues. I feel good about being presentable, about showing that I'm still the same Professor Anthony they knew, just in a new phase of life." Rethinking celebrations. Over the years, I learned that celebrations don't need to be grandiose to be meaningful. When I turned 70, I was recovering from pneumonia that left me quite debilitated for almost 2 months. It was a difficult period, especially because Mary was no longer here to take care of me as only she knew how. My children, with all the love and care they've always shown, wanted to organize a huge party. Lucy, who inherited her mother's gift for organization, had already made a list with more than 100 guests, including former students, teacher colleagues, and the entire extended family. Charles had researched various buffets and bands, wanting to do something really special. It was during a Sunday lunch, while we were savoring Charles's wonderful stroganoff, he really inherited his mother's culinary talent, that I needed to have a frank conversation with them. "My dears," I began, carefully choosing my words while playing with the rice on my plate, "I deeply appreciate your care and concern, but I need to be honest. I prefer something quieter, more intimate." I saw the disappointment in Lucy's eyes, always so expressive like her mother's. "But Dad," she argued, "you deserve a special celebration. 70 years aren't 70 days. Charles, more similar to me in temperament, observed in silence, probably already understanding my reasons. I explained to them that big events left me anxious and tired, especially after the pneumonia. Besides, since Mary passed away, celebrations were never the same. She had always been the soul of the parties, decorated the entire house, insisted on preparing that wonderful orange cake that everyone loved. Choosing our places with age, I learned to better choose my paths, both in life and literally. There are some places that over time I realized it's better to avoid, or at least visit with more caution and in appropriate company. For a long time after Mary's passing, I had the habit of visiting the cemetery where she is buried every week religiously. I always went on Wednesdays after the chess club. I brought fresh flowers, white orchids, her favorites, and spent hours talking to her in my thoughts. At first, that ritual brought me comfort. It was like keeping our connection alive somehow. But over time, I began to notice that I returned home increasingly dejected, with a sadness that took days to pass. It was my daughter Lucy who first noticed how these frequent visits were affecting my mood. One Sunday afternoon, while helping me organize some old photos, she touched on the subject with that delicacy that only she has. "Dad," she said, holding a photo where Mary smiled radiantly in our garden, "Mom's memory isn't just in the cemetery. It's in every corner of this house, in every smile of ours, in every moment we share." It was hard to accept at first, but she was right, as always. Today I keep a special corner on my balcony, with a photo of her next to the orchids she loved so much. It's my way of keeping her memory alive, without needing to expose myself to the heavy environment of the cemetery every week. Now I go there only on special dates and always accompanied by Lucy or Charles. Technology and adaptation. Another important learning was about knowing my limits when exploring new places. I remember well the scare I gave everyone when I decided alone to visit an antique fair on the other side of the city. I've always been passionate about history, being a teacher. The fair happened only once a month, and on that specific Sunday, I was especially excited because I had read about an exhibition of old coins from the Brazilian imperial period. I left home early, confident that I could get there without problems. After all, I had memorized the address and the bus lines I would need to take. I took 2 buses, got lost a few times, and when I finally arrived, I was exhausted and disoriented. To top it off, I ended up tripping on an irregularity on the sidewalk. Luckily, it was just a small scare and some scratches on my knee. Charles sat with me on the balcony for hours, patiently teaching me how to use the cell phone. "Dad, there's no shame in asking for help or using technology to our advantage," he explained, while showing me how to use GPS and transportation apps. "The world has changed and we need to adapt." At first, I confess I was reluctant. I thought I was too old to learn these new things. But my grandson Peter, with his 8 years of wisdom, told me something that changed my perspective. "Grandpa, you always say that we never stop learning, right? So let me teach you." And so he became my official technology teacher on weekends. Choosing companies and places over time, I also learned about the importance of carefully selecting the companies and environments I frequent. The other day, an old work colleague invited me for a happy hour at a bar that I later discovered was a bit dubious. Politely declining certain invitations became an important skill. As I always say to my grandchildren, we build a reputation throughout our lives. It's not worth risking for so little. One thing I learned to avoid are very crowded or noisy events. Last New Year's Eve, my children insisted that I go to a party at their friend's beach house. There were too many people, very loud music. It was impossible to maintain a conversation. I ended up staying in a corner, anxious and uncomfortable. That's when I realized I needed to be firmer in my choices. The value of simplicity. After all these years lived, I learned that true wisdom lies in simplifying. When I retired, I thought I needed to fill every minute of the day with activities, perhaps to prove that I was still productive. I kept a busy schedule. Computer classes on Mondays, water aerobics on Tuesdays, chess club on Wednesdays, reading group on Thursdays, volunteering on Fridays. Until one day, during a checkup, my doctor told me something that made me reflect. "Mr. Anthony, you're retired from work, not from life. You need to find a balance." It was a gradual process learning to say no. I chose to keep only the activities that really brought me joy. Chess on Wednesdays and the reading group on Thursdays. On other days, I learned to appreciate the silence of my house, the pleasure of a good read without rush, the time to care for the plants that were Mary's. Family communication with my family also changed a lot. Before, I was ashamed to ask for help or express my needs. I thought I would be a burden to my children. It was on a Sunday afternoon, after feeling unwell alone at home, that I realized how wrong I was. Charles and Lucy were devastated for not knowing I wasn't feeling well. "Dad," they said, "we need to know when you're not well. This isn't a bother, it's love. Building new connections." Since then, we created a WhatsApp group. Yes, I learned how to use it, where I share my daily routine. Nothing too elaborate, just a good morning in the morning and a good night before going to bed. Sometimes I send photos of the orchids that are blooming or the homemade bread I learned to make. When I don't send a message, they already know something might be wrong. It's a simple system, but one that leaves us all more at ease. One of the greatest joys I discovered in this new phase was surrounding myself with people who inspire me. At the chess club, I met Mr. Joseph, 85 years old, who still volunteers teaching mathematics in a social project in the neighborhood. He taught me that age is just a number when you have purpose in life. Sometimes I go with him to the classes and tell a bit about American history to the young people. It's a way to keep alive the teacher that exists in me. There's also Ms. Teresa from the reading group, who at 78 years old started writing her own short stories. She lost her husband 10 years ago and found in writing a way to deal with loneliness. Her stories are full of memories and wisdom, and she recently managed to independently publish a collection. It was quite a celebration in our group when the first copy arrived. Technological discoveries with the grandchildren. My grandchildren have been wonderful teachers in this digital era. Julie, my oldest granddaughter, taught me how to use Netflix. Now every Thursday night after the reading group, I watch an episode of historical documentaries. She says I'm the only grandfather she knows who has a list of series to watch. The twins, Michael and Ralph, introduced me to the world of online chess games. At first I thought it was absurd. Chess is to be played in person, feeling the pieces, I used to say. But during the most difficult phase of the pandemic, it was this technology that allowed me to continue playing with my friends from the club. Now I confess that sometimes I prefer to play online. I don't have to worry about arranging the pieces afterwards. Peter, the youngest, is my digital photography teacher. He taught me how to use the cell phone camera to record special moments and even showed me how to take those selfies that everyone loves. At the beginning of this year, we made a digital album with old photos that we digitized together. It was a special project that brought us even closer. Each photo had a story to tell, and he loved hearing about how life was in the old days. Adaptation and growth. But perhaps the most important lesson I learned was about adaptation. When Mary passed away, I thought I would never find joy in life again. The apartment seemed too big, too quiet. Every corner held a memory of her, and that hurt deeply. Gradually, I rediscovered my place in the world. I transformed the old office into a reading space where I received my grandchildren to tell stories. Her sewing room became my plant corner, where I grow the orchids she loved so much. Julie helped me choose a comfortable armchair, and Charles installed special lighting for my readings. As I always say to my grandchildren, aging is an art that requires daily practice. Some days are harder, it's true. There are mornings when the joints hurt more, when loneliness weighs a little more, but I learned to accept these moments as part of the journey. I maintain a quiet but meaningful routine. I wake up early, do my light gymnastics, prepare my coffee calmly, read the newspaper, I still prefer the printed one, take care of the plants. New talents discovered. A recent discovery that brought me much joy was cooking. I had never cooked much. Mary was the queen of the kitchen, and I was her official admirer. But after she passed away, I needed to learn. I started with simple recipes, but soon discovered that I had a special talent for homemade bread. Today, every Sunday morning, the aroma of fresh bread fills my kitchen, and the grandchildren line up to taste Grandpa's bread. Helen, my daughter-in-law, gave me a special notebook to write down the recipes. Father-in-law, she said, you're creating a culinary legacy. And it's true, I already have several of my own recipes adapted to my taste. The latest creation was a sweet potato bread with rosemary that even Charles, always so critical of food, approved. Celebrating small victories. Each small achievement became a reason for celebration. I remember the day I managed to make my first bank transfer through the cell phone app. I immediately called Charles, all proud. Or when I learned how to make video calls and could participate in Julie's birthday party, even while being sick at home. These are moments that may seem insignificant to some, but for me represent important victories. I'm proud to say that today I can solve most of my practical issues on my own. I pay bills, order groceries online, schedule medical appointments, all from my cell phone. As Mr. Joseph from the chess club says, we're never too old to learn, we just need to be patient with ourselves. The wisdom of years. As the years passed, I realized that true wealth lies in the relationships we build. When I was younger, I worried so much about status, appearances, what others thought. Today, I know that what really matters are the moments shared with those we love. As a history teacher, I always taught my students about the importance of learning from the past. Now at 75, I understand that our own personal history is as rich as any textbook. Each wrinkle on my face tells a story. Each memory kept is a chapter in this long narrative that is life. The value of time. I also learned to value time differently. When we're young, we have the impression that time is infinite, that there will always be a later to do what we want. With age, we realize that each moment is precious, that each encounter could be the last, that each hug deserves to be fully felt. That's why I make sure to be present at all important family moments. I don't miss one of Peter's guitar recitals, even if it's online. I watch all the twins' soccer games, even if sometimes I have to leave at halftime because the crowd noise bothers me. I attend Julie's ballet performances, proud to see how she's grown. A new look at life taught me that we don't need much to be happy. A well-cared-for wardrobe, even if simple, some meaningful celebrations with those we love, the wisdom to choose our paths, and most importantly, the grace to accept each phase as it is. That's what really matters. As my Mary used to say, life is like embroidery. On the right side, we see the design. On the reverse, the knots and seams. Today, I understand that all experiences, good and challenging, formed the design of my life. And what a beautiful design it turned out to be. Now, sitting here on my porch, watching the sunset among the orchids that Mary loved so much, I realized that every moment of this life was precious. Every choice we made, from the simplest to the most complex, contributed to shaping who we are today. Life continues to surprise and teach me. Just yesterday, while helping Peter with a World War II research project for school, I felt that old teacher's excitement when sharing knowledge. It's as if time hadn't passed, as if I was still in the classroom, seeing students' eyes light up with each discovery. With love, Anthony, teacher, father, grandfather, and eternal student of life, PS. And don't forget, always keep a well-ironed shirt in your wardrobe, your heart open to new stories, and remember that each day is a new opportunity to learn something new. Special thanks. I thank each one who dedicated their time to listen to these memories of an old teacher. I hope that in some way my experiences may have touched your hearts and perhaps helped you see the beauty that exists in each phase of life. As Mary always said, each moment is unique and precious. And so I continue, living one day at a time, surrounded by the love of my family, the company of good friends, and the sweet memories of a life well lived.